So thanks to our visiting carpenter, we do have a nice roof here over this box, and it sits now in the shade, and it's not so much for the rain but because of the sun. This is painted with some synthetic paint so that it will keep up with the heat, I think, and protects the wood. This is just regular plywood, but I think it came out very nice. Yeah, see the angle here on the side, so there's a little bit of a pitch also. And now the box that controls a part of the irrigation system is now out of the sun. Here we have a little zucchini patch, and there are also some flowers next to this zucchini, and there the ones that were left over. And this is a little bit fenced in. It's not hot. Also, it could be electrified. Just to tell the dogs, please don't go in here. And it's around this wobbler here basically. And this should give us, in about 3 months' time, summer squash zucchini. I used the string trimmer aggressively to cut down on most, I think a little bit missed the spot there, on most of the grasses. And my hope is that the zucchini will cover ground more quickly and be on top of the grasses. Of course, there is not that much that I can do once everything has grown, because if I come in here with the string trimmer, then I might also damage the zucchini. Not in the next week or so, but yeah, that could be a problem. It's a little bit an experiment, because I've never done this in this way before. But then I am not a gardening expert either. So this is all learning by doing. But I kind of like how this looks like. And hopefully the zucchini is able to stay on top. It's that in nature, all kinds of plants grow on top of each other. So somehow, if they get enough light, that Miyawaki forest is an example, then they should prosper. Question is how much. And if these vegetables can deal with the grasses. But then by now, it's mostly the Bermuda grass, and the Bermuda grass stays low. Of course, the other grasses are still there, but when the temperatures are too high, then they stop growing at some point, and after all, they already went through their cycle. But there are other plants in there. You see them there in the background, where I did not cut just yet. It wasn't due, but it will be. So growth is good. Wherever there is moisture, then things do grow quite nicely. And there in the background there's also irrigation going on, and I also added a soil sensor there so that I have data for every area where I irrigate, so that I know what I'm doing. And speaking about planting, so here in that box I also placed the sensor in a different spot. Here it reads over 30%. I think in English you call them turnips, so these, or well, in German this is Radieschen. And they are getting big. So I think that one could already be harvested. Because if they are too big, it's also not good. But here we placed some tomato plants and some basil next to it. These were grown in pots from seed, and yesterday they got out planted. The soil is very clayish. It is certainly moist, but it's clayish, so it sticks together. And the patch of tomatoes, of potatoes there is also coming along very well. Soon they will be ready for harvest, but it's probably 2 months from now. So this time this seems to be working out, and the shade close on top of it gives it some shade during the height of the day when the sun is right above this. So this is working out, and I plan to put a string from the top to help the tomatoes a little bit, because from past experience I know they will just lay on the ground, and the idea is to lift them up. And I am very eager to take one of these out. So let's do this with that one here. Yes, this is about the right size for breakfast, which I'm going to have now. That is quite interesting. These Paulownia trees, this is now one of several making offspring. So this one grew out of a root of that one or this one here. And you can see it's already quite tall and thick. Oh, this is very impressive. I have not seen that before. And probably in a commercial plantation that would be avoided by simply removing it. But here in that case, why not? It's part of this wall of shade, and it's pretty moist here in this shade. And they have grown also very wide, so that this wobbler there is now between the leaves. And that of course is not as it should be. It still throws the water to the right, but to the left it basically throws it against the leaf that is right next to it. So I think that one I need to move. Hopefully the water line allows me to move it a little bit to the right, somewhere there where the stone is. And if not, I have to redo this or put an extension in, so that this water comes to here. Would make a little bit more sense. The others are quite far away, not too far, but this sits basically between three, but it would help. And there it's not well placed. And the understory here is also interesting. There are some sizzles, but I guess the understory will be now dominated by something else. And I don't cut into this, or else I would have cut this. So I let this be. It's like a hedgerow, this whole thing here. And the dogs go in there because it's fresh and cool. And once they're a little bit taller, I can then start pruning so that the leaves are higher up, and below we get a little bit more light, and maybe some half shade plants could grow there, something that we can eat. I am looking forward to see this next year. The soil there is now so soft that I was able to do this by hand. It came out extremely easy, and I was also able, with my own force, no hammer needed, to push this into the ground. So this works. Water and plants and more biomass in the soil, and suddenly you have something that is easy to work with. Unlike the concrete that we have all around. I think this is quite funny. We are in summer and we have a puddle, and it's a little bit muddy. We drove the backhoe through here and removed the fence here on this side so that we can build a new one. Of course, this is because of the irrigation, but it is still quite a surprise to have this here in all this dry land. But the soil here is definitely changing because of the plants, and you see all the butterflies there because there's food. So this is working, but it needs to go through several steps of the succession. And right now we are at that stage. I hope that by next week I can order the other Paulownia trees, and we will set the fence further out, and then here in this area we can plant the trees. And they will definitely not sit in dry soil, as you can see here. So here at the grey water pond, the Vetiver is starting to green up and starting to grow, but it's not as vigorous as I would like to have it. But there are green leaves. So, for example, here, the one in the center, you see, but it's only a few green leaves. And I'm wondering why. It might be that cutting it ahead of time, before it starts growing, is important. But then it's supposed to outgrow this. I'm wondering. The whole area does look nice in the sunshine. And it's not that hot. It's above 30 degrees for sure. And it's already the afternoon. But this whole thing does look nice. But it's thanks to the irrigation. Without that, this would be semi-desert. And I'm standing here contemplating what smaller things we can do next. One is certainly to bury these water lines here, but I'm also thinking about how to reorganize the irrigation here in this area. So for example, that wobbler there is now outside, and eventually this is an animal path, so it cannot be there. I think this needs to go on the inside, but if I put it further to the left, then I will irrigate that porch there. And that's not supposed to be wet all the time. And there's already a problem. But this is a temporary structure, but still should not be the case. I guess for this area here, I need a different type of sprinkler. Those that only irrigate a sector. So I could put them on the side of the house and then irrigate towards here. And then I could remove these wobblers here, which then means I can add wobblers on this side. So basically shorten that system a little bit and make this system bigger. And once we had a model that was suitable for that. Those are sprinklers where the outlet comes up when the pressure is there, and you can determine the size of the sector. I guess I need to get a few more of these and then install them on a riser. Yeah, probably that is the way. I'm now here where we planted the watermelons, and I want to check them out. This one here looks a little bit sad, but then they all have their leaves rolled in a little bit because it's pretty hot. And later they should open up again. The transplanting shock should not be that much because they have been in pots and the soil from the pot is still with them. But there is one that kind of died. This one here. On the other hand, this looks okay, except for this part. Seems to be a mixed bag. This one is very yellow. But I very much doubt that this is lack of water, because there is moisture here. They have been in full sunlight in the tray as well, so that's a bit strange. But then you don't expect that everything will survive. But many are in worse shape than when they got put here. I don't know what it is. Or it might be that they do need more water, but this one, for example, looks pretty good. Well, the strange thing is that the one that is next to the wobbler is in very bad shape, that one here. The sensor sits right there. And in their pots, they got the same amount of water, I would say. But then there wasn't the other soil around. So there they had the moisture in the pot alone for themselves. While here, if the soil around is drier, then it might suck it out of this little root ball. So maybe it needs more water. That's quite interesting. I think I should relocate that sensor and place it right next to one of the plants to have a better reading. So I got a reading from the sensor and it's just 16%. And by looking at the wobblers, I have a feeling that the three here at the end are dispersing less water than those at the beginning. And that might be because the pressure here at the end is not enough. And the reason is that this is a 25 millimeter pipe, but that's a 3/4 inch on the inside and not 1 inch. And that is the wrong type of pipe. So the pressure will then get lower and lower, and therefore less water comes out. So that's a problem. And it's 16 of them. So this is a little bit too much. I am rethinking the system. So this is kind of proof that this is required. So I guess for now I just need to irrigate 2 times, but it also means that over there at the beginning it gets a lot wetter than here. Or I deactivate a few. I need to find the material to be able to do this, because I can't just turn them off. They have no shut-off valves. I would have to pull them and put a plug in there instead, or a straight connector to remove the T where the wobbler sits on top. Something like that, but something I need to do. This is definitely not as it should be. That is something quite interesting and a bit funny. You see that the color there is different there in this area. I'm not sure if this is still from when the pig pond was overflowing, the wallow, or whether there is some way for water to come to here from the very same thing. Also, it's not overflowing anymore. That's what happened. So they have their wallow here, and I'm adding a little bit more water to it. But it's quite interesting to see that. And by the way, as you can see, we still have no straw. The guy who usually delivered straw to us somehow has the yard full with straw, but it doesn't come, and he doesn't tell a lot of things. So next week I will ask him again, and if there is no reply or no positive reaction, then I'm going to buy from a different source. These people have a different type of truck, smaller and more ground clearance for basically off-road, while the other one only has a truck that is made for highways, and that seems to be a problem. Thankfully we don't need a lot, so a few bales should do, and the other guys can certainly deliver that. They are basically next door. He didn't say anything, and he might even be their supplier. Who knows? But then we should have some straw here. It's not too smelly, but you can certainly notice that there are pigs without seeing them. And the idea to make compost here during summer does not work, because the UV rays simply prevent this from happening. The bacteria that is required cannot live under the full sun. So if this were a barn, then of course that would happen. But here outdoors, you just add material, and it can then compost later during autumn and winter when there is less UV rays, and also the temperature is lower. So things that work elsewhere in northern climates, they do not work out of the box here. You have to find a different way, or do it during a different time of the year. And speaking about today, I answered a question that someone left, and the person said, but it's very late. Usually trees cannot be planted during June or July. Yes, that is true for most trees. But the Paulownia trees, they need to be planted precisely at this very moment. And that window of opportunity closes by mid-August, because then there is not enough heat for these trees to thrive, and establish themselves for autumn and winter. Those are heat-loving plants. They need 35 degrees Celsius, and you can't plant them when you plant the other ones. So there are 2 times where we can plant things, and the heat-loving things, they can be planted from May onwards when it's warm enough. So therefore, this is now the moment, and the window closes by mid-August. And of course you do this when it's not so hot outside for you as a human, but the plant actually likes the heat.